Hello and welcome to The Future is Now, a show of the digital TV channel F15 in cooperation with Forbes. I am Camilla Sievers, entrepreneur and under 30 list maker, and here I interview future builders that envision utopias for their respective fields. Today's guest is Niclas Holmberg. He is the managing director of Global Listing Services Sweden of Nasdaq First North. Nasdaq First North is a division of Nasdaq Nordic and an alternative stock exchange for smaller and medium-sized companies in whole of Europe. He will look at small and medium-sized companies who want to further their growth and don't want to go the classical VC route, but have Nasdaq as a strong partner and use Nasdaq First North as a springboard to go to the US. Hi, Niclas. So nice of you to join us.
Hi, Camilla. Nice meeting you.
I am very excited about our interview today. We will be talking about Nasdaq First North development over the last decade or so, how it helps company in their growth journey and why this kind of particular route might be better for some companies than normal VC money that they will get at a later stage. And then obviously we'll look at some of the threats and chances that you see for your industry and how do you envision the future of this kind of small and medium-sized growth journey through an IPO to look like in the future?
Yes, I would love to talk about Nasdaq First North and how it can help not just Nordic company, but also European company on their growth journey.
Exactly. So I think this will be very relevant to every small and medium-sized company in Europe. So let's get started with our first intro question. So the viewers will get to know you a little bit better. And the first question would be, Niclas, tell us about what's your biggest strength and your biggest weakness?
I think I'm very curious. And I grew up, my childhood was very much related to sports. So I would say that I never give up. In terms of my weakness, do we really have time for that? From time to time, I think I'm a little bit impatient and that I sometimes forget that for some people, job is just a job. And maybe that I get so much involved and commit me to my work. So yeah, that could be a challenge sometimes.
Mm-hmm. And do you have a life philosophy?
Yes, that I always try to say yes on a request.
And what's your work philosophy?
I think that is to find inspiration and ideas from people that are outside my natural network. Mm-hmm. And also try to find solutions that benefit all parties, because it's so much easier to work when you have everyone involved.
Awesome. So let's get right to your main endeavor. Tell us a little bit about Nasdaq First North and what you do for a living and how the journey of the last decade or so was for you guys.
Yes, I have a fantastic job. I'm responsible for company listed on Nasdaq platforms in Sweden. So that include our main market, our regulated market, but also Nasdaq First North, our growth market that is a multi-trading platform. So in my day-to-day job, I meet brave and fantastic entrepreneurs on the growth side, but I also try to meet together with my whole team, of course, try to see how we can develop our service to our listed companies. And now it's quite much focus on ESG and how to help them to navigate in that space.
And so your service is particularly tailored to small and medium-sized companies. Can you tell us a little bit, why do you focus on those companies and why is this a fantastic route to scale their businesses?
I think that goes a little bit back to where I'm from Sweden. We are a small country. So a lot of Swedish startup, they already from day one have a global focus. So, and also with companies like Spotify, Klarna, iZettle, Oatly, and so on, we have very successful companies. So to be part of a growth journey and to support them, we have found out that in specific sectors, going public in early stage could be very relevant for the company. And it's not just about raising capital and liquidity in the share, but also to get the credibility and visibility that come with the listing.
And could you name some of the companies or the industry sectors that you particularly are interested in?
I would say that your typical growth company when you come to Nasdaq First North, but so in these days, the most of the companies have a kind of a tech edge, but also healthcare is a very important sector for us. And now we see more and more clean tech company, and they are very suitable for the stock exchange because they typically come from the university projects. They have found themselves through grants, soft money, and then when they have a proof of concept, they can use the power from the stock exchange to raise capital and take the next step in their journey.
You have talked about the Nordic or the Nordic environment. Can this service be used by any European company? And you might have some example of companies outside of the Nordic area that have done so?
Yes, we actually started a few years ago to see how can we develop our market to be more suitable for European companies as well. And so instead of just running out there and say, come and list with us, we wanted to have every important stakeholders on board. So we started with talking to the investors, both institutional investors and retail investors, because that is what makes Sweden unique. So we have built up we have a long history of knowledge within equities. So actually 80% of the Swedish citizens are shareholders. We also wanted to have both the financial and legal advisors on board. So if I start talking to a company from, let's say, from Germany or Switzerland or Austria, I can also give them good advisors that can support them to list in the Nordics. So now we have kind of a build up a small ecosystem that we can start working with non-Nordic companies as well. And last year we have two very successful listings with one Germany company called MGI Gamigo gaming company, and one medtech company from Switzerland with name Implantica.
Okay, and so when we look at like what I would say is the typical startup journey, as you said, you start with friends, family, and fools. You build your prototype. You might go to an incubator, accelerator. You get some grants, and then you look at big VC money. At some point, you have to think about, a later stage funding round. And which means obviously you have to have a certain kind of trajectory in mind, which is enormous growth because VCs don't want to wait 20 years. But you also have to give up a lot of equity. So what do you think are the main reasons, and maybe also Nasdaq First North chances in this, really competitive market when it comes to funding very successful high-tech companies? Where do you see are your biggest chances to procure such a startup? And on the other hand, why should a startup choose you versus a VC that will also take them global?
First of all, the public market is not for all scale-up companies. You need to have a good IPO story and maybe some predictability in terms of revenues, and also the fact that you need to have an idea of how could I communicate our business and what we do into the public market? So again, I would just give a good example. We had a company called Sellink. The founder, Eric Gartenholm, they rang the bell with me in November 2016 with a pre-money valuation of around 12 million euro, raising 3 million euro. They believe that the US market going to be extremely important for them. So instead of found themselves in the private market, they wanted to have the brand Nasdaq. They believe that that will open up business opportunity for them. And now these days, Sellink has a market cap of 2 billion euro. And they have gone back to the market twice a year because they have delivered on the expectation. So the public market, at least in Sweden, are extremely supportive if you deliver on your expectation. So you can actually speed up your growth, and that is very attractive for some companies.
And then it seems like also VCs would want to do that if it serves as your, I think, mission statement says, as a springboard to the main market. Which I mean, every company wants to be on the main market and looks outward of Europe. So do you perceive institutional investors and the likes as people who will move these listings forward, or people who will see you in a light of, like, in a competitive light?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Camilla. About 10 years ago, when we, 2008, when we launched Nasdaq First North, there were not that many institutional money invested on First North. But we have built up a good reputation, and we also put another layer called First North Premier, that you need to have the same free float as on the main market. You also need to have IFRS in place as accounting standard.
So, can you explain what IFRS is for the viewers?
It's an accounting standard. For example, on Nasdaq First North, the regular one, you can use your local accounting standard. But on Nasdaq First North Premier, you need to use this global standard called IFRS. So starting with that, we today actually we see a lot of both VC, but also private equity-owned company that use Nasdaq First North and Nasdaq First North Premier to list the company. And then they have a clear view that within 12 to 24 months, this company going to move to the regulated market. And we are so happy that before summer holiday, we have moved more than 100 companies from First North and First North Premier to the regulated market. So that is a real success story. And what is also nice that today you can do your book building with institutional money, not just from the Nordic area, on First North and First North Premier, because the reputation is so good.
Amazing, amazing. Okay, and so if you look at your journey and obviously your projection for the next decade, where would you see, who are the stakeholders involved in this process that are holding you back? Is it not enough companies know about your services? Is it regulatories in Europe that are, difficult to overcome or make the process harder, longer, etc.? Where do you see, if you look at the future of Nasdaq First North, where do you see, what are the hurdles basically that you need to?
Yeah, first, EU offers a lot of self-regulation, which has historically served the market well. But we always try to, talk with the companies, talk to the regulators, talk to every stakeholders on a weekly basis to understand what are the key drivers. And right now I'm talking to the VCs and try to see that they open up in their investment criteria to to actually hold equity also on the public market, because if one of the portfolio company, maybe they should benefit to go into the public market for some reason that I mentioned, for the credibility and visibility that comes with Nasdaq. So why should they not be able to, offer the company that journey? I also think it's very interesting what you see now related to EU and European Commission, where this program, Horizon 2020, EIC, EIT, that will become an important player. And so how can the stock exchanges work together with this program to see if we can, develop a good structure for those companies to help them? So I think that there's so much that we can do, but in the end, it starts with a lot of discussion, conversation like we have today, and try to get information, and at least what do the company wants? How do they want to finance their growth?
Yeah, and let's move on to maybe your utopian, vision, what you would wish for Nasdaq First North, and then all of your stakeholders and partners. Where should we go to make the future brighter for these small and medium-sized companies? What does your wish for your industry, what does that look like? What does it entail?
Yes, again, we are Nasdaq First North. I believe that we are in the beginning on a journey. We are more than 400 companies listed on Nasdaq First North right now, and we would love to see more non-Nordic companies that try that road, that there are more entrepreneurship in the whole Europe, that there are more countries that build up a better kind of an ecosystem for growth companies to do the same what we have been successful in the Nordic. Another thing that I would like to see, I would love to see more female entrepreneurs. Today, we see more and more of our listed companies that chose to have a female CEO. And just as you mentioned, it's important for, if we list a company, it could be a Swedish company or Austrian company. If you start to list your company on Nasdaq First North or our regulated market, and then you grow, and then you understand that it's a demand from US investors to invest in you, we will for sure help you together with our US colleague to make sure that you can also list in the US. It's not that we can approve is made by SEC, but you will have a completely backup. And we see more and more companies that looking for that dual listing opportunities.
And as we know, like the one resource that a startup needs to really be smart about on how to invest is time/attention. And
yes.
So if you have a partner that actually knows what it takes, knows, what kind of steps are involved, and can get you there faster. I mean, that's in some ways that's you can't put money on that knowledge and on that partnership. Amazing, Niclas.
Thank you.
I think it's time to go to the last bit of this interview, which is your general perspective on things. I will read some sentences, which you be so kind and complete.
Okay.
The first one would be, what do you think, having lived through the COVID crisis for a year now, what do you think the long-term effects for startups will be?
I believe it's going to be a greater freedom to work from wherever you want, which as the best creates a more inspiring work environment. I'm a little bit afraid people that might for different reasons have a strong maybe private network, that they could be a little bit more isolated, but I go for the first one, that more freedom. That's
always good way to look at it. what do you envision in general a utopian future for our world to look like? You know, I have the feeling we're living the utopian dream of 100 years ago. Now we have the biggest accelerator, which is tech, to really envision a different world. So what does this world for you look like?
Oh, big question. Oh, that will be a world that we in the future will have solved the climate issue, and where we see a lot of new successful entrepreneurs and micro company that comes from all around the world, and especially from emerging markets. I think that will be fantastic.
And what do you envision a dystopian future to look like?
Oh, that will be that we see trade wars, countries closing the national borders that lead to segregation, and in the end, the poverty.
Yes. And last but not least, who is a utopian visionary for you who I should interview on this show?
I would suggest that you have that interview with Erik Gartenholm. He was the founders of Sellings that I mentioned before. Fantastic entrepreneur story to tell, and also he is a very friendly guy. So I will be happy to see him on this great show.
Amazing. Niclas, thank you so much for all your insights, taking the time, sharing your visions and your know-how. And I am absolutely 100% sure that this, your offer and everything that you do will help a lot of companies in the future. We'll do our part in making this more known and hopefully shooting you a couple of companies that will click on the link in bio where I will post your LinkedIn profile and your company's website, obviously. And for you, I thank you for joining us this week again. We love for you to subscribe our YouTube channel and suggest who we should interview. Everything that was talked about is, as always, in the show notes. And I can't wait to see you next week on another episode of The Future Is Now.